Welcome to another segment of provocative conversations destined to provoke further thought and spark greater questions regarding God, church, and the religious establishments of both the past and the present. I am the proud heretic, Mr. Provocateur himself. Hello, I am the proud heretic. I am here to share with you some of the prophetic utterances that I heard that I was given by God, because I have no other way in putting it other than by that. I think it's something even deeper than what my words are able to explain. But I am bringing things that were never generated through my own intellect. I did not have prior understanding, as far as I know, regarding any of this. I'm sharing with you the things that we must do in order that we would be able to work in accordance with this divine season that we're in. Our individual requirements, the things that's required of us individually. I'll continue on, and I'll begin on March the 29th, where God spoke a few things to me. Well, he spoke a lot to me on that day, but I'm only dealing with the things that he spoke to me in regarding the requirements, our individual requirements, the things we must do in order to get through this season, in order to function in this season and beyond this season. On March the 29th, God stated to me, what you can do to keep yourself is keep clear of certain groups and activities. God says, we know now that one of the worst things that you can do is gathering groups, whether it's for anniversaries or birthday parties or picnics or a Father's Day, a Mother's Day, or any other type day where there's groups involved, even in church settings. We know now, here we are in October of 2020, we know now all too well what happens when you get into crowds or groups and activities. But way back in March, I didn't understand this like this here, like we know now. But God was saying one of the things you can do to keep yourself is to just keep clear of the different gatherings and things that we do, that people are doing in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of divinity at work. God says, stay in your vicinity. We're still trying to travel outside of where we live. We're still trying to travel and go beyond the borders of where God has us. That's something he stated to me on October the 13th, 2020. But I'll get to there in the end, at the end of this particular set of teachings on this subtopic here. He says, stay in your vicinity. Stay in the vicinity of where you live. But we're still going from state to state, city to city, town to town. We're flying here, flying there. We're going out of country. We're going everywhere. We're just doing whatever it is we're big enough and grown enough and bad enough to do. God says, stay within the vicinity of where you live. He says, stay local. This is not a time to visit and mingle. Yet people are doing just that. This is not a season of mingling, but rather this is a period to be alone. But we don't want to be alone because we might hear ourselves breathe. We might find out that our breath stinks, that it really does stink. We might find out some things about ourselves that we need to change, that we don't want to change. We're not willing or ready to change. God says this is a period for you and yours to be alone together. This is not a period of activity, but we see so much activity going on. And when you see sports activities going on, when you see church activities going on, when you see family activities going on, when you see school activities going on, what else do you see? Sick activities going on, death activities going on. He says this is not an active period, but yet we're very active. This period is not to be active, but we're being very active, as though all is well in the camp. All is not well in the camp. All is not well in the world. But yet we keep moving and rumbling and rambling. This period is not to be filled with activity. So that's one of the things we can do. Slow down on our activities. Allow what God is doing to sink in. He said this is a period of listening. This is a period of hearing. Well, there you go. Open your ears. Do more to listen. Do more listening and less talking. Do more hearing than you are arguing. Fighting against the doctors, fighting against the authorities, wanting to go to court and be heard on a lawsuit against the state, the city, the town, the county, or whoever you're going against, in order that you can break out of your so-called imprisonment. God says this is a period of learning. Are you learning? Are you doing anything to learn? Not if you're not listening, not if you're not hearing. He said this is a period of growth. Are you growing? Are you growing? This is a period of coming to know. Are you coming to know? A period of coming to understand. Are you understanding more? He said it's a period of coming to see. What you seeing? What are you seeing? What are you seeing in this pandemic? What are you trying to see? What are you seeing about you? What are you doing about what you claim you're seeing? See, all of this is important. God says you are in a season to hear. You are in a season to see. You are in a season of seeing, a season of unveiling. Are you seeing anything being unveiled to you? Or are you fighting against that which is being unveiled to you? He says you are in a season where things are being unveiled. You are in a season where things are being revealed. Are things being revealed to you? Why not? How so? He says this is a period of humility. This is a period where humility will become central. Where are you at in your humility? Are you allowing yourself to be humbled? Are you allowing this pandemic season to humble you? The events in this season, within this season, to bring you to a state of humility, to bring your humility to the forefront? Are you allowing the humility of the mask wearing to humble you? Or are you allowing the perceived humiliation of mask wearing to cause you to become radical and rebellious? God says this is a period where humility will become central. He says this is a period where humility will be the central focus. Is humility your central focus in this season? Is humility your central focus? Are you being centrally focused on being humbled? One of the ways in becoming humbled is being humiliated. Is this season humiliating enough to bring you to a state of humbleness or humility? Are you allowing this season to divinely humiliate you enough that you become humble in this season? That you humble yourself and cease from speaking, that you allow the humiliation to to work its toll on you, in order that the humility will flow through you, be seen by you and by others around you. God says this is a period where humility will become the central focal point. This is a period where humility will become the order of the day. Is humility becoming the order of the day in your life? Today I will be humbled. Today I will allow myself to be humiliated. Today I will allow humiliation to have its free reign, its free work in me. God says this is a period of quiet humbleness. This is a period of quietly humbling yourself. Is that what's happening? This is a period where everyone will be required to humble themselves. Everyone will be required to humble themselves during this season. This season will bring humility to its forefront. God says we are to align ourselves. He says, align yourself with this season. Get in line with this season. Get with the season. He says this is a period of alignment. This is a period where things will align themselves. This is a period where people will begin to align themselves. Are you aligning yourself with this season? Or are you bucking against this season, getting out of line with this season? Are you in accord with this season, or are you in a state of discord with this season? The events of this season, the requirements of this season, the direction of this season. He says this is a period of people aligning themselves with me. This is people's opportunity to align themselves with me. You have, sir, ma'am, an opportunity to align yourself with God in this season. Are you doing so consciously, intellectually? Are you purposely putting yourself in a place of alignment with God? This is a time of personal alignment. This is a period of you aligning yourself, not the preacher aligning you, but you aligning yourself. This is a period of you aligning yourself with your family. Are you doing that? This is a period of you and the members of your household coming into alignment with each other. This is not a period of personal greed. God says personal greed will not have place in this period. This is not a period of personal greed. We kind of move away from alignment and we're in the personal greed area of things. But he said this is not a period of personal greed. So one of the things in this season, you don't want to be involved in personal greed during this season. He says personal greed will not have place in this period, though people will continue to be greedy. Listen, God says, even though people are going to continue to try to hurt other people and be greedy and take more than what they should, and there'll be price gouging, food, just gouging. Everything has the supply and demand. Everything has a demand upon it for the most part right now, especially those necessities. And people are taking advantage of other people in every single way. You see the restaurants that are open going up. You see the fast food restaurants going up. You see all of these places going up. You don't see gas going up, but you see other things going up. Gas did go up once the initial shutdown happened, and then it opened back up. You began to see the gas rise. But right about now, here in October of 2020, the gas is pretty low. So I saw it in the 150s on yesterday. I saw 157, I think, on yesterday. But God says you got to watch that you don't take advantage of people. You got to watch that you don't be greedy in this season. That's what the church is still continuing to do. He says the greed of the people will continue to be on display, but their greed will cost them. And whatever people will gain in their greed will be lost due to their greed. For greed will have no place during this season. God says this is not a season to take advantage of anyone. So One of the things that you need to make sure that you don't do is take advantage of people. People are hurting. If you're a landlord, watch how you handle them. If you're a police officer, watch how you handle them. If you owe people money, watch how you handle them. You don't want to take advantage of anyone. This is not a season to be taking advantage of anyone. This is not a season that anyone wants to be taking advantage of anyone, he says. Taking advantage of anyone during this season will be costly. People who take advantage of others during this season will suffer great loss. The loss will be great. On March the 31st, God said some things to me in regards to things we can do, things we must do, our individual requirements throughout this season. People are in need of slowing their still. We don't know how to sit still. Even when we're still moving. We're still doing. I can't stand when somebody talks to me and they're doing 50 different things while they're on the phone talking to me. So they use me as their talking mate while they're cleaning up and doing their chores. Now, when I talk to people, I stop what I'm doing and I focus on the person. And if I'm not there, then I don't even call the person because I know that I'm too busy to even give them the actual time of day or the time that they need in that day at that particular time. So I don't even call them. Or I'll call them and say, I'll call you back when I'm finished. But for you to sit and just always doing, fiddling, faddling, can't sit still, keep moving. You got a problem. You got an antsy problem. Sit your antsy down. Anyway, people are in need of slowing their still. Is your still moving? Even when you're in your still moments, are you still moving? Are you still doing? Are you still split in the mind because you're doing all type of other things at the same time? Listen, you need to learn in this season how to slow down your stillness, God says. People need to learn how to be still. He says the earth is pausing in order that the people would begin to slow themselves. But people don't want to do that. He says this is a period for the people of this world to slow their still. This is a time period for people to slow down their stillness, but we won't. He says people have no slowness or stillness. They have no slowness in their stillness. In their stillness, even people's stillness is paced too fast. Even your stillness is paced too fast. Even your stillness is at a pace that is too fast. He says people do not understand stillness. People do not know how to be still. People do not even understand the need to be still. People don't understand the importance of being still. In this season, learn how to be still. Learn how to be disciplined. Learn how to sit your little fancy hiney parts down and let God do. He's going to do regardless, but purposely, submittingly, let consciously be aware of what he's doing. He says this period will teach people to be still. This season will cause the people of this generation to learn stillness. This season will teach people about the need to be still. It will teach them the importance of being still. Are you learning that yet? Or are you still up moving and doing and can't sit your little antsy in the pantsy behind down somewhere? Right now is the divine period in time, God says, where evolvement is occurring. To evolve means to come into. Evolvement is occurring, God says. This is the divine period in time for things to evolve. and we won't allow things to evolve. He says evolvement requires both time and patience. He said this period involves both time and patience. Where is your time being spent? Where is your patience being spent? Or is your time, is your patience even being spent, even being applied by you? Evolvement requires time and patience. This season is going to require your time and patience, because this is a season of evolvement. This is the season where God is evolving all things, even you. This period involves both time and patience. You're going to need that. Time and patience are the necessary ingredients for this season. Time and patience. Stop trying to rush this season. Stop trying to rush getting back to your normal, getting back to whatever, to school or to church or whatever. Stop it. Cut it out. Stop trying to get back to another job, another hustle, another dollar. Cut it out. Time and patience are the necessary ingredients for this season. God says people's patience is being established throughout this season. Is your patience being established? Patience is what is being established, God says. This is the time for people's processing to occur. Are you allowing this season to process you? Are you allowing personal processing to take place within you, within your household? You didn't get these days off from work because of a layoff or so that you can go and do whatever you want to do. This is free time for you to regroup and to consciously process. This is the time for people's process of evolving to complete itself. This is the season for the people's process of becoming to be recognized. Recognized by you. Recognized even by others. Is the processing that is going on within you recognized by you? Is it recognized by those around you who come into contact with you? God says this is the season for people to recognize their need for processing, to recognize their need to be processed. Do you see the need to be processed? Do you see the need to be worked on? Then why aren't you sitting and letting God work on you? Why are you constantly moving? Why are you constantly doing? Why are you filling the time that God has given you off out of the hustle and bustle, out of the rat race of this world? Why are you not giving that time to God? Why are you not dedicating and devoting yourself to the process of change, to the processes that are occurring in our current world, in your current state? Through this season, God says, people are being required to slow down in their activities in order that they might evolve. In order that they might evolve in a proper manner. Are you evolving in a proper manner? This is the time for people's processing to occur. This is the time for the people's process of evolving to complete itself. Are you allowing your evolvement, the way that God is bringing you about and into your destiny? Are you allowing that process to complete itself in this season, or are you still up running and doing? He says this is the season for the people's process of becoming to be recognized. Do you recognize it? Do you recognize it being achieved? He said this is a slow pace period. Then why are you trying to speed up the process? Why are you trying to speed up this season? Why are you trying to speed up the pandemic? Why are you trying to speed up the wearing of masks or the getting out of the mask wearing? Why are you trying to speed up getting back to school, getting back to work, getting back to wherever? Why are you trying to speed up the economy? Why are you trying to speed up the legal system? He says this is a slow paced period. This is a period where everything will be done in a slower pace. Everything will take place at a much slower pace in this season. He says nothing will be rushed. Nothing will be able to be rushed. So one of the things that we're going to have in this season again is patience. Time and patience. Everything during this season will take time and process. Time takes time. Process takes time. Nothing will be microwaved, God says. Nothing will be microwavable in this season. Everything during this season will lose its normal pace. Nothing in this season will occur at its normal pace. This entire season will be a slow season. Everything in this season will be slow. Everything in this season is designed to slow the season, God says. Everything is designed in this season to slow down the season. Let's stop trying to speed up the season. It's designed to slow it down. This is a period of slow-paced processing. This is a period for people to slowly and consciously process their ongoing state of becoming. We are all becoming. We're all coming into our being. We're all coming into being and becoming all that we are to be, all that we were destined to be, all that our destiny requires of us. This is a period for people to slowly recognize their becomingness, their becomingness, their becomingness. This is a period for people to recognize everything that is becoming, to recognize everything that is coming to be. God says people need to process everything that is coming to be. We're not processing where we're going. We're not processing the new that is occurring. We're not processing all that God is working and orchestrating and dictating in this season. We're not processing everything that is coming into being. We don't even see what's happening. We don't even care what's happening. All we care about is getting back to. God says people need to take the time and opportunity to see what is occurring. People need to take note of what is happening right before them. He says the people need to slow their pace and ingest what is occurring in this season. He says people do not want to miss what is going forth in this season. Are you missing what is going forth in this season? What is occurring in this season? What is being processed in this season? Who you're becoming in this season, through this season, by this season, because of this season, for this season, beyond this season? People do not want to ignore the evolving that is occurring. He said, you don't want to ignore the evolving, the evolvement that is occurring right now in this season, in this world. He said, the earth is evolving. Humanity is evolving. Systems are evolving. The question is, are you? Nothing will be the same, God says, nothing. Nothing will remain as it once was. He says everything is evolving. Everything is changing. Everything needs to be recognized. Are you recognizing the change, the evolvement, the fact that things will never be the same again? The changing of systems, or are you fighting to maintain the systems that are? The earth is evolving. Are you? God says this is a season of reflection. This is a season for people to reflect. Are you reflecting? Are you sitting down in this season and taking the time out to reflect how your life was going, to reflect what your experiences have been up to this point and what this pandemic is doing? He said this is a season of reflection. This is a season for you to do that. He says throughout this season, people are being given a period of time and the necessary period in time to reflect. Are you reflecting? God says everyone should be reflecting. So that's one of the things you can do. This is a period for people to reconnect. Are you reconnecting? For people to reconnect with themselves. Are you reconnecting with yourself? Are you coming into a reality of yourself? Are you connecting with who you are in your misery, in your mess, in your attitude, in who you've been to other people and how you've treated other people? I have. I'm dealing with how I've dealt with my wife at times. I'm dealing with how I dealt with my kids at times. But I deal with these things for the most part on a daily basis. But I'm truly wanting to go deeper now that I know even the more in God, if there is a deeper to see. This is a period for people to reconnect themselves with their own consciousness. Are you reconnected with your own consciousness? Are you conscious of your own state of existence, your own condition? He says this is a period for people to connect with their own conscious state. He says reflection is the key to getting through the season that you're in. Are you reflecting? He says that's the key to you getting through this season. He says without proper reflection, you will not get through this season. He said you may indeed get through the physical aspects of this season, but you will not get through the psychological aspects of this season, not without proper reflection. There's going to be some psychological twists and turns in this season that if you don't reflect and if you don't turn inwardly and become conscious of your own state, you're going to have a problem beyond this season. So when you get through this season, through this pandemic season, which will be a long period of time, folks, but when you get through it, if you get through it, you will still be living from the effects of this season because you never dealt with yourself in and throughout this season. He says without proper reflection, even if you make it through the pandemic season itself, you will still not get through the psychological effects of this season that will reach beyond this season. He said there are some psychological effects that are going to come out of this season, come due to this season, that you are not going to get around, beyond, or past until you deal with them, until you deal with you properly. Let me go again. Without proper reflection, if you make it through, even if you make it through the pandemic season itself, you will still not get through the psychological effects of this season that will reach beyond this season, the time of this season, even beyond when this season comes to an end, you will still be dealing with the psychological effects of it. He says without proper reflection during this season, you will remain in the actual period or stages of this season. And you don't want to get through this season and still remain active, psychologically active due to this season. He says even after this season. This season demands your reflection, he says. It demands everyone's individual reflection. Are you giving this season your reflection? God says the psychological impact of this season demands your proper reflection during this period of reflection. The psychological impact of this season demands your proper reflection during this period of reflection. No one will get through this season without reflecting. without proper reflection. He says, even though you may get through the season itself, you will remain in the actual period of this season if you do not take the time to properly reflect during this season, throughout this season. He says, listen, people will not be able to maintain their sanity during this season. He says the quietness during this season will be deafening. People will be deafened due to the quiet stillness of this season. If you don't see the quiet stillness, you just keep living. I see it where I am for months and months. There's a quiet stillness in a lot of your lives, and it's going to be in so many people's lives because of the quiet stillness due to the deaths that occurred in this season, due to the absence of those who were once part of your life in this season and before this season. The quiet stillness during this season will drive people insane. People will be driven to the point of insanity due to the quiet stillness of this season. That's why you need to be listening to God's voice in this season. That's one of the requirements. You need to hear what he's saying to you. You need to reflect. You need to listen. A time of hearing, a time of listening. During this season, the hearts of people will faint due to their inability and their unwillingness to hear me. People will literally lose their sanity during this season because of not hearing me, because of them not hearing what I am saying in this season. He says, my voice is to be heard in this season. He says, my voice is the only thing that will keep the people's sanity. Are you hearing his voice? Are you doing what it takes to hear what he's saying? My voice is to be heard and adhered to by each individual during this season. Well, there's one of the requirements. People's sanity during this season is dependent upon their ability to hear me. Unless people can hear me, they will lose heart during this season. If you cannot hear him, you will lose heart in this season. This season is a season that is beyond measure, God says. He says there's nothing that you're going to be able to measure this season with, because everything that's happening in this season is greater than anything that you've ever seen. I heard Dr. Fauci say today on this October the 21st of 2020, I heard him say on the news today, he said, what we're getting ready to go into will bring us beyond any experience from human or from mankind as a whole. And then he did add, well, from 1918 on, but you got to remember, I think that was around the time they began to actually record certain things. But God has already stated to me that this season will be a season beyond measure, beyond anything that can be measured. He said this season will be stressing to the senses. The human senses will be stressed beyond measure. The human senses will be stressed beyond measure. People will be demanded to hear from me during this season because of what this season will do to your emotional base, to your mental state. It'll be demanded that you hear his voice, hear what he's saying, what he's doing. People will have a greater demand to hear from me as in no other season prior to this season. He says during this season, people will demand to hear my voice. They will demand to hear what I am saying. He says the sanity of your humanity is dependent upon the hearing of my voice by you. Are you hearing his voice? Are you hearing what he's saying for this pandemic period? This is why God says, I told you that you must speak. The only thing that will keep people from the point of insanity is their ability to hear me, and their ability to hear and see me through this season. You need to hear the voices of those who are called for this season. You need to hear the voices of those, the words of those, even if you don't like certain aspects about them. You are to hear the voice that God is using in this hour, in this pandemic period, to speak forth. This season, God says, demands the hearing of my voice. He says, my voice will direct you in this season if you hear me. My voice will lead you in this season if you let me. He says, my voice will keep you if you let my voice keep you. On June the 3rd, 2020, he said two things to me, or he said something to me in relation to this subtopic. The important thing is to go with the flow. Go with the flow. I already made that clear. Going with the flow. It is important that you go with the flow, God says. Anyone who goes with the flow is secure. You say, well, what do I need to do to get through this season? What do I need to do to get through what God is doing? What do I need to do to secure my present, to secure my future, to secure everything that pertains to me, even my health? God says anyone who goes with the flow is secure. Well, there it is. Go with the flow. Anyone who goes against the flow will be trampled. Look how many bishops have been trampled. How many pastors have been trampled. How many parishioners have been trampled. Look how many medical staff have been trampled. Look how many police officers have been trampled. Look how many ordinary people have been trampled because millionaires been trampled. The White House, the church house. Why? Because they would not go with the flow. They went against the flow. He says the flow will trample you if you go against it. Well, one of the things you don't need to do in this season is go against the flow. He says, do not go against the flow, but instead go with the flow. He said, your safety is in going with the flow. Your safety is in going with the flow. The question is, are you going with the flow? Are you going with what the doctors are saying? Are you going in the direction that you should be going in this season? Or are you following the dictates of man? Are you running back into the church house? Are you running back into the schoolhouse? Are you running back into the clubhouse? Are you running back to the bar house? Are you running back to the whole house? What are you doing? Where are you running to? What direction are you going? Whose flow are you in? All of this is important in this season. God went on to say in July, on July the 2nd, he spoke to me 2 times on July the 2nd. He spoke to me 2 lengthy periods of time on the same day, both in the morning time. On July the 2nd, the first time he said, humility is going to be required during this season. I already showed you about humility. Humility is a must for this season. He says this season is meant to bring forth humility. Is this season bringing forth humility in you? Are you allowing this season to bring forth humility in you? Or are you allowing this season to bring out the pride in you, the arrogance in you, the haughtiness in you, the anger in you, the hatred in you, the disrespect in you, the rebelliousness in you, the disobedience in you, the witchcraft in you? Humility is a must for this season. He says this season is meant to bring forth humility. Humility is what is going to get you through this season. Your humility, your humbleness, your being humble. Without humility, you will lose it in this season. Without humility, you will lose it in this season. Your humility, God says, is a must. People who humble themselves will be preserved. If you humble yourself, you will be preserved. If you humble yourself, you will be preserved. Put the mask on, put the gloves on, put the PPE gear on, do what you need to do. Sit down in your house, humble your little prideful self, humble your little antsy-pantsy self. People who humble themselves will be preserved. People who submit to the movement of this season will do good. People who submit to the ruling of this season, God says, will fare well. If you humble yourself, you will be preserved. If you submit yourself to the movement of this season, you will do good. People who submit to the rulings of this season by those in authority will fare well. Are you faring well? Are you submitting to the rules, to the movement? Are you humbling yourself? God says, but those who rebel against this season will not recover from this season. Those who rebel against this season will not recover from this season. Those who rebel with this season, in this season, against this season, will not recover from this season. Are you rebelling with this season, against this season? If you are not going to recover from this season. Those who rebel against the flow will be trampled by the flow. Those who rebel against the flow will be trampled by the flow. There will be many who will go against the flow of this season, God says. There will be many who will go against the flow of this season and never recover. Those who snark at the flow of this season, God says, will succumb to the flow of this season. There will be many who will succumb to the flow of this season because they would not submit to this season. Your recovery in this season is in going with the flow of this season. Going with the flow of this season is what assures your recovery from this season. You want to be assured of your recovery from this season? Then go with the flow of this season. That's where your assurance comes from. God says, do not lose yourself in this season. 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 Do not lose your focus in this season. Do not lose your focus during this season. Do not lose your focus. Maintain your focus. These are the things that we can do. On July the 2nd, as I stated, he spoke to me twice, 2 lengthy periods of time. But what he said to me in reference to this particular topic, he said to me, those who go with the flow of this season will get through this season. Those who go with the flow of this season will get through this season. Those who go with the flow of this season will get through this season. Those who adhere to the advice of this season will be spared in this season. Are you adhering to the advice of this season? Are you adhering to the medical advice, the scientific advice in this season, of this season? Are you going to be spared in this season? The question is, are you adhering to the advice in this season? See? But those who will continue to do what they are so pleased to do during this season will see devastating consequences. Those who continue to do what they are so pleased to do during this season will see devastating consequences. God says, stay tuned during this season. Stay tuned to what is taking place. Listen to what is taking place. Stay tuned during this season. Stay tuned to what is taking place. Listen to what is taking place. Are you turning on the news? Are you stop all of this fake news? Listen, they want you to believe that so that they can dictate to you. The church has always dictated what you hear, what you believe, how you think. No. Stop it. All of these people are not lying. Okay? Cut it out. The very ones you're listening to are probably lying. You should know by now, each of you should know by now, that Donald Trump, even though he's your president, even though God put him in position, he's a liar, and God knew who he chose. Jesus said, I knew who I chose as my disciples. And he said, and one of you is going to betray me. Basically is a devil. It's not like God didn't know who he chose. That don't make it right who he is and what he's doing. But you already know he's a liar. He's been setting you up for you to think like you think now, not knowing who to trust, so you just trust him. You just trust those who talk like him. You trust the church. The church tells us the world is a sinner. The world is sinful. Love not the world, nor the things of the world. Because the things of this world are enemy against God. The church always made it all. Listen, I missed the whole 1970s decade because I was sitting up here thinking I was going to hell singing those blues. Man, now I'm stuck in the 70s. Now that I understand my freedom, I live in the 70s. Every night I'm listening to my 70s music. Throughout the day, I'm listening to my 70s music. I love the 1970s. I sat there and gave up all of those people. Why? Because I was stuck on what they were telling me, on what the church was telling me. I miss my people. I miss listening to those people. I love Captain and Tennille. I love the Bee Gees. I even love some of the Beatles. I loved Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5s. I love Diana Ross. I love all of these people who had Carly Simone, all of these people who had real Crystal Gale. I loved all of these people, but I let the church tell me all that was wrong. No, you're wrong. Listen to the news, people. Stay tuned during this season. Stay tuned to what is taking place. God told me everything that you see is an illusion. He says it's all the illusion. Do not become delusional by believing in the illusion. Don't become delusioned by that which is the illusion. It's not true what you see out here necessarily. Stay tuned to what is true. Find a station that you can trust. Find a news station that you can trust. A newscaster that you can trust enough to hear. But first of all, listen to God. And don't let it say, well, don't listen to the news. Just listen to the man of God. Listen to the prophet. No. That's how we got over into stuff too. I ain't telling you to just listen to me. I'm saying listen to me, but listen to the news and listen most of all to God. And whoever else God sends your way that you know. Try it. Try the spirit with the spirit. Listen to what is taking place, God says. Heed to what is taking place. He says, heed to the warnings. Heed to the advice. Go with the flow. Go with the flow of this season. Go in conjunction with the flow. On July the 11th, God says, I want you to stay within the mindset of this season. Stay within the mindset of this season. Stay within the mindset of this season. Stay within what you know regarding this season. Are you staying within the mindset of this season? Or are you still living in past seasons? Are you trying to do everything and keep your mind busy with everything else except what is going on in this season? You're not to walk obliviously through this season as though all is well in the camp and everything is going to be good. No, you need to be conscious of this season, consciously aware of what is going on in this season. I know that some people say, well, don't worry about this season. Just take it in and breathe and just whatever. Well, I'm saying something a little different because God told me something different. He says, I want you to stay within the mindset of this season. Stay within what you know regarding this season. He says, focus on the season. This season is to be your focus. And I know he's saying that to me personally. Definitely so. Focus on this season of things to come. Focus on this season of things to come. Focus on this season of things to come. This season is where your focus is to be. Do not let anyone disrupt you. I have allowed people to disrupt me in this season. I'm saying to you what God said to me. Don't let anyone disrupt you in this season. What do you do? You want to go out with me? You want to go shopping? You want to go this one? We're going to go. No. I got to stay focused on what this season is. I got to stay focused on what God is doing. I cannot allow myself to be disrupted from where God has me in this season, from what God is doing in, with, and through this season. He says this season is where your focus is to be. Do not let anyone disrupt you. Do not let anyone take your focus. And I have allowed myself to be disrupted. I have allowed my focus to be taken away from people by people who are not doing anything for the season, who's not doing anything in relation to them trying to hear and receive from God. God says, do not do that. He also says, do not go for revenge. God says in this season, we got to seek not to take revenge on people. This person did me wrong. That person did me wrong. We're going to have to walk away from that. I just saw something yesterday that I found myself doing, and I just realized it just now. I didn't fully take that in yesterday, but I'm taking it in now, where I should have allowed something to walk, and I didn't allow it to walk. I sought to take a small type of revenge, but revenge nonetheless. Therefore, even I need to continue to stay focused on what God is saying to me, what God is doing, and don't seek to take revenge. He says, do not attempt to take revenge upon anyone who does you wrong. He says, let them do you that way in this season. Not just this season, but let them do you however they do you. He says, do not seek to go back at anyone who does you wrong in this season, or just period. Do not seek revenge. Just continue forward. What God said to me, well, I'll say what he says first. Continue with your focus. Keep your focus. Keep focused, or keep focusing on what you are to focus upon. Maintain your focus. God says one of the reasons why this is not a season to be seeking revenge is because people are looking for a reason right now. People are seeking to hurt, to kill. We're going to have to walk away from some things, and you will lose focus. And in those moments of losing focus, you can end up walking right into a trap that may very well cost you your life or your freedom. God says, prepare yourself for what is coming. This is where I open up at with this right here that he said to me on July 11th. But prepare yourself for what is coming. Are you preparing yourself for what is coming? Are you preparing your house? Are you preparing your food pantry? Are you preparing your protection pantry? Are you preparing with the necessary tools to defend yourself? The necessary tools that you may very well need? The necessary items? Are you preparing yourself with all the cleaning supplies and the masks and the gloves and are you doing all of that? Are you preparing your yard for what may come this winter? Are you preparing your house, your residence, your vehicles? What are you doing? What are you doing for this season? What are you doing to prepare yourself for what is soon to appear? God says, prepare yourself for what is soon to appear. Prepare yourself for the approaching danger. Prepare yourself for the devastation. You all by now should have listened to most, if not all, of the recordings prior to these recordings here. What did you do with what you're hearing? What are you doing with it? Are you just listening and letting it go in one ear and out the other, and you're not doing anything for it? Is it just sounding like sweet music to your ear? Or did you allow yourself to become afraid, and now you tuck your head up under the bed, up under your blankets, and now If I just get up under my blankie, the boogeyman won't see me. The boogeyman won't know I'm here. No, that's not going to work. This season on July the 20th, God stated to me, this season is about self-awareness. It's about becoming aware of self. Though this is that second type of self that I'm talking about, those who are being awakened in this season are being awakened to self. Is God awakening you, to who you are, to what you were looking like? Are you allowing God to show you who you are, what you're made of, what your attitude looks like, what your attitude smells like, what your faults have been, what your behavior has been, where you are spiritually? Are you allowing him to speak into your life, allowing him to awaken you to you? Because see, that's what this season is about. You becoming aware of self-awareness. He says this is a self-awakening season. This is a season of self-awakening, awakening to self. This season is about becoming self-aware. It's about you becoming aware of your own condition. This season is about the conditioning of self, about you doing what it takes to condition self. This season is about self-conditioning. It is about the condition and conditioning of self. Self-conditioning is the necessary requirement of this season. Self-conditioning is the keeping strength of this season. Those who are going to fare well through this season are those who are interested in the conditioning and the condition of self, and who are actually doing whatever it takes for self to be conditioned. Are you doing exactly what it takes for self to be conditioned? God says this season is predicated upon the conditioning of self. This season is predicated upon people's conditioning of self. This season is predicated upon people's self-awareness and their self-conditioning, which are the two necessary elements of this season: self-awareness, self-conditioning, time, patience, all of those things. Those who are not willing to be consciously aware of their own condition of self will not fare well in this season. Do you want to fare well in this season? Then get your nasty, raunchy self aware of self and do something about it. Those who are not open to the conscious effort of conditioning self will not do well in this season. Those who are not interested in self during this season will not be awakened by the things regarding this season. If you're not interested in dealing with self during this season, you will run away from the things of this season. You will run away from being called upon in this season, being called to the carpet for your doings in this season. If you're not interested in self, in conditioning self, and seeing self for what it is, and doing what it takes to get rid of the things that should not be in self, in order that the self of your destiny could come forth, or can come forth, or will come forth. If you're not willing to see self and to deal with self, you will not be awakened by the things in this season. The things in this season are divinely designed to bring you into an awareness of self. And those who are not interested in their own truth regarding self will not be awakened by the things of this season. Those who are not concerned with their own fate will not be awakened to their fate. Those who are not interested in their own mortality, their own mortalness, will not be concerned with the affairs of this season and will not be awakened by their own mortality. This is a self-examining period. This is a period of self-examination, a period where people are to examine themselves. This is a period where people are to consciously allow themselves to be examined. Are you allowing yourself to be examined? This is a period where people are to consciously accept the examining results of this season. This is a period where people are to correct their examined results. As you examine yourself, as you see your wretchedness, what are you doing with it? Are you putting self in check? Are you checking self? People are supposed to be made aware. People are supposed to be awakened. People are supposed to be awakened to their own consciousness. People are supposed to be awakened to their conscious self, to their consciousness of self. Are you allowing yourself to be consciously awakened to self? Oh, conscious awareness of self. I want to be consciously aware of self. I want to see where I am in myself. I want to see where my selfishness lies. I want to see where myself gets in the way of me, in the way of others, in the way of my purpose, my destiny. I want to remove all the residue of self. I want all of the residue of self to be removed from within me. I want God to work self until self is right. I don't want to live oblivious, ignorant to self, to where I am in self. This is an important season. And as you see, there are many things, or a great deal of things, a great many of things that we are having to do, or we have to do in order to get to where God is taking us through this season, because of this season, in this season, by this season. Whew. It's a lot, people. It's a lot. But that's what change takes. A lot. On the next one.